I don't care, YouTube. Okay, I don't. Stop giving me lip about stream rates and resolutions. I don't care. Just turn it on. Let me stream. Let me talk to this arena full of people. They're already in here waiting. Okay? Stop holding me back. Oh, what's up? You guys are here. Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another edition, weekly narrative live stream podcast. For those of you who aren't normal fans. Wait, are we even live? Are you messing with me, YouTube? Are we good? Can you guys see me? Yes. All right. I think so. Waiting for confirmation. I gotta pull up another channel here. Pull up my own channel. It's a whole new interface. All right, thank you. Thank you guys for that confirmation. Welcome to the chat room. This is a very, very special live stream for two reasons. Number one, you may have noticed it's kind of noisy out there, so I'm having them expand my parking lot for the arena outside, and so they're out there with jackhammers right now. They're actually building 180 additional lots in the parking lot, which isn't that big. I asked for 500, but we'll do with 180. So excuse that. But other than that, this is probably my most planned out show. The most planning that I've ever put into a show. And yes, you get a VIP spot for being a moderator, by the way. Everyone who's in chat right now gets one of these new spots because these are the VIP spots. But for those, I should start out this way. For those who are new to my channel, because I've gotten a lot of new subscribers in the past like 3 weeks. I do podcasts every week, so this isn't my normal content where I go to protests and make people look stupid. This is where we just kind of talk about ideas, current events, philosophy, stuff like that, and just to try to keep the brain juices flowing throughout the week between protests and stuff. So welcome. If you want to come in here and hang out, you're welcome to do so. Today we're going to be talking about my philosophy of failure, and I actually think this came up out of the blue, actually, but it came out about in a way that, you know, it's going to be productive in the end. I want to share a little bit of personal story with you guys, related to a very fun topic that's also relevant, and that is dating in 2018. Before I do, I just want to point out that I think, and I'm going to try and slowly explain to you guys why I think that the ideas that I'm going to be trying to portray here are critical to the existence of Western civilization itself. Okay, so I'm trying to save the world is what I'm trying to say. Okay, I'm trying to save the world here. Not a big deal, but you'll see the principles, and hopefully I can paint the picture. But I'm going to use a story of mine, which I don't normally do. I'm not a storyteller guy. We're gonna change it up today, do a little bit of storytelling, and try to portray this point through this story. So bear with me. It might be a little weird. Yeah, it's a spot that I don't normally put myself in, because you know me. I'm not very big on emotion. Okay, so, but we're gonna be talking about a subject that's a little less logical and rational today. So strap in and enjoy. It's an opportunity for you guys to know me a little bit better. I think that's good. And also, I don't really have a lot of people to talk about this kind of stuff with in real life. You guys are kind of like my dump of where I get to go and vent to this kind of stuff too, which, you know, that's fine. I live a pretty solitary life, so I'm used to, you know, dealing with stuff. It's not. I'm making it sound a lot worse than it is. Let's get into it. So, I've been dating on and off for the past year because I've been single since moving here, basically. Will I talk about the caravan? No. This is specifically just about this one topic today. A deep dive on philosophy. I've been dating on and off for a year, and I've been using a couple different dating apps, which I know. You're going to say, oh, dude, what are you using the dating apps for, man? Those are terrible and this and that, and they promote terrible culture. I get it. I really do. I understand. 2 reasons. First of all, not that I have to justify myself to you guys, okay? But number 1 is that it gets me outside my comfort zone, which is a practice that I like to try and do as often as I can. But number 2, did I say number 2? That was number 1. Number 2 is that I'm busy, and I don't have a social circle here because I just moved here a year ago. I don't know a lot of people, so it's a great way to like meet people and try and form connections when you don't otherwise have the social circle, the foundation already there. Oh, you've used the apps too, so don't. Okay, thank you, Jen. That makes me feel a lot better, actually. What's up, Gooch? Welcome in. You don't have to apologize. Just sit back and enjoy the stream. We're talking about my philosophy of failure today. So, dating on and off, I've dated, a handful of girls, whatever, nothing serious. A couple big phenomenons that are going around now with the whole online dating app thing is that you get like ghosted, you get flaky girls, you get people who just stop talking to you for no reason, all that kind of stuff. Dealt with it all. Okay, no problem. Don't care. It's great. Not a big deal. But kind of out of the blue, kind of strangely, and looking back, it's still really weird. It's still really strange to me how this whole thing happened. I got a message out of the blue on one of these apps from a girl who, her opening message was, "Hey, I saw you like Jordan Peterson. What did you think about his debate with Sam Harris?" I was like, is this a practical joke? What's going on here? This is kind of weird. Because you got to understand, first of all, depending on what application you're using, if you're using like OkCupid, for example, you're going to get a lot of, I'm going to be very unpolitically correct here, deal with it. You're used to it if you're on my channel. You deal with a lot of fatties and a lot of social justice warriors on there. Like a large portion of those people are, they say in their profile, like, swipe left if you voted for Trump, or you're a conservative or libertarian. I've even seen that. Like, libertarian now is on. When did libertarians get thrown in with Trump lovers and stuff? I don't know. But so you get a lot of. What I'm saying is, it's really rare to find someone who is not only not part of that culture, but doesn't like that culture and is actively kind of intellectually against that in interest in like Jordan Peterson and that kind of stuff, anti-postmodernism, anti-Marxism, stuff like that. Really rare. So I was kind of caught off guard by that, but it turns out, she had a lot of other great qualities that made her really stand out. So it's a really, really tall order to find someone like this on a dating app, or even in general, especially in California, in 2018. It's hard to meet quality people in general, not even just girls, okay? Just regular people, like guys. If I'm trying to make guy friends, I have like maybe 2 guy friends, and we're not even that close because I don't know about you guys, but I'm really, 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 really picky with who I spend my time on, which I think is good. But anyway, so we start going on a couple dates, whatever. Nothing too serious, like 3 or 4 dates. Everything was going great, I thought. And then essentially it just she cut it off like out of the blue, just like out of nowhere for reasons that I don't understand. And it was a wake-up call for me because not because I lost this opportunity of this, like, what do they say? The one that got away, right? That's how they say it. It's not like that. It's symbolic for me in that I didn't have what it took to get someone of this high caliber, right? So it was a shock. And I don't mean that to sound cocky, like, look at me, I can do whatever I want, get whoever I want. It was just I always thought that it would be easier with someone that you have a lot of this kind of connection with. And it just kind of just stopped out of the blue, and I got this crazy shock to my system, my whole body. Like I got hit by a dump truck. And yeah, so experienced this kind of really strange, out of the blue shock. And it made me come to a few realizations. Now, these realizations didn't come out of the blue, right? And I had to first kind of, I had to examine the situation. So, you know, if you're watching my live streams, you know that I like to examine stuff kind of in depth. And we did like a lessons learned a couple weeks ago on like the Kavanaugh situation. I do the same thing with everything in my personal life. It doesn't matter if it's dating, any bad or negative things that happen to me in my personal life. I always treat it the same way. So I examine it, and I try to figure out. Well, it's kind of like a 3-step process, and I'll go over my 3-step process in a little bit. But I guess yeah. Let's start with that 3-step process right now. The first step to figure out, examining this situation, is figuring out who am I going to lay the blame on, right? Something goes bad, you get in a car accident, or you get like a bad sandwich at McDonald's or something. You're angry, or you're upset, or you're disoriented for some reason. Who are you going to blame? You're going to your brain is kind of electrified to a degree. You don't really know. You can't really think straight right away. And I think that's one of the big problems that a lot of people have today in modern culture, is that the first thing that they feel, they just go with that. There's no process in place for, wait a second, okay, so I'm feeling this right now. This is really bad, or this is a really shocking situation, right? But is this really the best way to go about it? It takes a lot to be able to do that. Luckily, I have that ability. I don't know where it came from or how I developed it, to be perfectly honest with you. Probably just a combination of good parenting and genetics. I'm weird, okay? So I have weird DNA where my brain just, I'm always calm. So I was able to look at the situation objectively and say, okay, so why did this happen? So this kind of happened out of the blue. Why? This was different from any of the other girls that have ghosted me or whatever, or have stopped talking to me. This was different for some reason, and I just didn't understand. And I wasn't in a position to where I was going to be like texting her, like, hey, what happened? Oh, please, I don't understand. Why? Like, I'm not I'm not one of those guys. So I had to just endure the pain and try to figure out why this happened. And it took a few days. It took 2 or 3 days of just kind of being super introspective. You have to. A lot of people have a tendency to run away from their internal thoughts if they're challenging, and that's a sign of bad mental health. So first of all, if you've ever experienced something like that, and I'm not talking about super traumatic, but just general failures, day-to-day type stuff, because this isn't that big of a deal. But when you don't confront those and you choose to like run away or drown them out with alcohol or drugs, or making yourself super busy, preoccupying with other things, I don't think that's a really healthy thing to do. What's up, Mitch? Welcome to the chat. I just saw you join there. We're talking about my philosophy of failure today, so grab a seat, listen close. So the first step was figuring out that, okay, I'm going to assign the blame to me, and this is the most critical step, I think. Nobody ever wants to assign the blame to themselves, and this, again, I think this is why the state of the whole entire country is the way that it is right now. And I'll get to some examples of that later. But I decided, step one, okay, I'm going to assign the blame to myself, because I recognize that it's not productive to blame like her, for example, or blame I had a lot of options here. Okay, there's a lot of options available for when you fail and you want to assign the blame to somebody else. You can. I mean, I could have blamed her and be like, oh, her standards are too high and this is unrealistic. And I could have blamed feminism, like feminism is wrecking women in America. I could have blamed dating apps, like, oh, fucking dating apps, man, they're ruining a culture today. Stuff like that. Like, I had a lot of options. I could have blamed really anything. And a lot of guys do. A lot of guys will actually, you know what? Let me I have one of these. Check this out. Well, the anger is not the right reaction. So first of all, you have to get angry, and then you have to want to blame one of those. So Jordan Peterson talks about this concept of the dragon that appears in your life. If you read his book 12 Rules for Life, the dragon is this whole, mythological figure of, it's always been through a lot of mythology, but it's always represented something you need to conquer, something that has treasure, right? So the treasure, it's not like a really cryptic kind of metaphor, but the dragon is a problem. The gold is the reward that you get for conquering that problem, right? So I have this little dragon. He's over there right now. He's in the corner. He's small, so I don't have to worry about him too much right now. But if I don't address him properly, he's going to get a lot bigger. The first step in addressing him properly is not to give in to anger and assign blame on one of those other things. Step one, I assign blame to myself, and I try to examine what was going wrong there. So, against my better judgment, because I really don't like getting personal, but I'm gonna throw it out there. Okay, there's an element of confession to this, which also has therapeutic properties, not just in a biblical sense, but confession is, I think it was Nietzsche that talked about it quite a bit, but it's kind of like a gap between religion and psychology where, there's a lot of truths in the Bible that you don't necessarily have to be religious to understand and to believe. And what is it? Proverbs 28:13. I'm getting biblical on you guys. Whoever conceals their sins does not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces them finds mercy. So what? Mercy from what? What are we, in the biblical sense, you're finding mercy from God, right? You're finding mercy from the Father, from the Holy Spirit, someone who is judging you. But in a personal sense, when you fail, a big part of recovering from that is admitting to yourself and confessing, not only to yourself, but also to others, what you did wrong or what your mistakes were. So, kind of my confession is that this just happened. This didn't even happen a week ago. It hasn't even been a week. So I've been thinking about it a lot. And what I've determined, this is my best guess, and, not necessarily accurate, but so the way that I see it with dating, today anyway, when you're meeting someone and you're trying to determine whether or not this is someone you could be in a relationship with, you have two main kind of values, I guess. We'll call it no, that doesn't. Let's say you look at someone, you have their value, and then you have your comfort or your let's just go with comfort. So you have value and comfort. Value, for example, is okay. How much resources does this guy have? Does he have his life together? Is he, smart? Whatever. Comfort is more of like, okay, do we connect? Do we have interests? Do we have same goals, similar goals? Do we have? Is this someone that I could see myself like connecting with, being in a relationship with? So you kind of evaluate people on these two main different kind of categories, I guess. That's how I see it anyway. And what I did, I don't really fully understand why, but I was all about value. I don't know if it was like pride or what it was, but I was just oh, look at me, look at how put together my life is, and look at how good I've got everything, and look at my apartment and my nice job and whatever, and my YouTube channel, stuff like that. It's like I didn't emphasize. I didn't even really try to connect with the comfort side. Like, hey, I'm actually a human being too. And I don't know if that was pride or if it was just like I was trying to qualify to her or what that was all about. But it was an absolute utter failure, terrible crash and burn disaster in my eyes. So that was my failure, and that's me confessing. And it's not, I make it sound really bad, but that's just how hard it is for me to talk about personal stuff. So I've tried to rationalize as well as I can why I failed, and that's the best I can do because I don't have any other data. I don't have any reasons or anything like that. And human beings are really, really good at rationalizing. So even if there's no data, there's no trends. There were some trends and some stuff that I was going off of, but we can rationalize reasons out of thin air for anything. So I recognize that, that could be completely useless. She probably thought that I was just, I had no long-term potential. I was just gonna like ditch her or something like that, which is totally understandable, right? But it's it's hard to get to a point where you can rationalize and feel okay with it, because there's always that thought in the back of your head. It's like, man, well, what if I did this differently, or what if I did this, or what if it was this, that? I had a job interview for the job that I have now, and it was a series of like 3 interviews. Okay. The first interview that I went into, I bombed it. I bombed like 2 questions. I think I did okay on the rest, but I bombed like 2 questions that were really basic for like networking and security stuff. Like if you know networking and security, you should really know these like kind of in and out. And I don't know what I did, but I completely bombed that question, and I made myself look like an idiot, right? So I came out of that interview, and I was thinking, man, this was humiliating. This was a disaster. And this is the other trap. So getting to the point where you assign the blame to yourself, you're not out of the weeds yet, okay? Because there's another component to that where you have to differentiate between the positive and the negative. Because you could assign the blame to yourself, but then get into this like downward spiral of self-blame and self-defeat and stuff like that, like beat yourself up and just like, oh, woe is me type stuff. You can get into a cycle where you're just destroying yourself after you blame yourself. So you have to assign a blame to yourself, but you have to try and do so in a positive manner. And I did not do that when it came to this job interview. I was moping around everywhere. It was a huge opportunity. I was telling everyone that I thought I did terribly on it, and I wasn't expecting to get a call back. Like 4 weeks later, I actually got a call back. I did the second interview, much to my surprise. So that story had a happy ending. But the point is, the conclusions that you come to in your head aren't always accurate. So I completely destroyed any possibility that I was going to get a second interview in that situation. But that wasn't what reality was. So we're really good at rationalizing. Don't rationalize yourself into a hole where you're beating yourself up. That's all I'm going to say. So we've assigned the blame to myself in a positive way, because I've identified the ways that I can improve, right? The second step to handling a failure properly is I didn't even elaborate on the other 2 options. So you have the first option that I mentioned slightly is that you give in to anger, right? You become bitter and resentful, and that's like these nice guys. I don't know if you've seen these memes, or they're not even memes. Those are real life like screenshots of guys on the internet who react violently, seemingly violently, to like girls rejecting them. They're pretty hilarious. And I found a couple good examples that I want to show you to illustrate this point, because this is a way, I could have handled it this way. I had the option to handle it this way. So this is some nice guy, gentle sir, fedora wearing guy. And there's swear words in here. Just a warning to anyone with children in the room. Hi there, I'm blank, and your profile rather intrigues me. I think you look rather scrumptious. Would you be interested in drinks with a gentleman? She responds, nope. And then he says, well, fuck you then. There's countless examples of that. Here's another one. This one's really good. I like this one quite a bit. Let me move this over. I'm going to do this is a dramatic reading of a guy who just got broken up with out of the blue. Okay, now I could have done this too. I could have. You just left, but I thought we had something special. You're like the coolest girl I know, and you're like super easy to talk to, and you're really pretty, and I don't know, I guess I thought things would be different between us. Someone like you would never like someone like me, though. Haha. Holy F, that was the worst text I've ever written. Never mind about earlier, by the way. And the girl says, I honestly thought it was clear that I don't feel the same way. That came out of nowhere for me, and not sure what else to say. And the guy says, after everything we've been through, I feel so stupid for believing in us. Thanks for eating my Chinese food. And stealing all the girls at the bars. See you around. Thanks for eating all my Chinese food. Okay, this is real. I know you may not believe it. That's a real text. Dead serious. Okay, so I had that option. I could have reacted that way, but that's the wrong choice. So when dealing with failure, choice number 2, and this has opened my eyes big time. And this is why I wanted to talk about this subject, because this is what relates it to the bigger political, socioeconomic, cultural scale. Nihilism and apathy. Okay, so when people suck, it's very common to give in to nihilism and apathy. Now, what's up, Brian? Welcome, man. Yeah, that is cringy. It's terrible. Horrifyingly bad. Nihilism is basically the kind of like the belief that life is meaningless. Not to be confused with apathy, which is just a lack of caring. So you can kind of experience both at the same time, or maybe you can't because you need to care to try and find meaning, which is how you get into nihilism. I don't know, confusing. But the point is, when you've experienced this, it's really common and really easy for a lot of people to kind of, and I'm sure a lot of people here experienced it. I have experienced it. This list of 3 things, by the way, came from me experiencing all of these emotions. So there was a point in time where I was like, I was a little angry, or not maybe just at myself. And then I got to a point where I was like, man, this is really just like draining. It seems like a waste of time. If I thought that I had a connection, I thought this was meaningful. If something like that can just evaporate like a flash of lightning instantly, then what's the point? Like, why would I even? It took me, okay, so statistics. Do you want some statistics? Since I'm a statistics guy, it took me a year of dating to find one girl that I think it was long-term relationship material. That was this one. Not saying that I was like, I was going out for specifically looking for a long-term relationship, but I'm just saying this was a year and one girl, long-term relationship material. Maybe it's because I live in California, I don't know what the reasoning for that is. But when you experience that rate of success, and then it just evaporates instantly, like just gone, man, I'll tell you what, it is really, really easy to give in to apathy and nihilism. And you know, there was a couple days where I was just like, should I just like delete these apps? And like, this is retarded. Why? That's it. Just why, right? And then maybe it is all meaningless. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. And but you know, luckily for me, I was able to escape that, what I call the let's call it the event horizon. Okay, so nihilism is like a black hole. I like to make space references whenever I can because I love space. Space is cool. Nihilism is like a black hole, and I don't know if you're not aware of how black holes work. There's a radius around a black hole called the event horizon, also a great horror movie, where if you enter that radius, if you physically enter that radius, it's impossible to escape. You can't get out. You're gonna get sucked in to the center of the black hole, and that's it. Like, there's just no escape. That's kind of what nihilism is. And you're kind of, you know, after an incident like this where my whole ego is like just shocked and blown apart, kind of, in a way. You're basically like, you're floating out there in space, right? You're floating out there in space, and you're not really sure where to go, but you know, there's a black hole over here, and then there's a raging neutron star over here to your right of rage, anger, bitterness, resentment. So you're kind of floating in between both of those at the same time, and you're like, oh man. And you're kind of weighing your options, you know, but if you just, now I don't know the physics of how gravity of a neutron star would pull you. Let's not get into the nitty-gritty of the mathematics, okay? But you could just let go and just kind of float down this lazy river, right? Of you can just give in and just kind of float into this event horizon of nihilism and apathy, and then that's it. You just get sucked in, and then, you know, after experiencing that, it's been a long time since I've had that kind of like a shock that made me feel that way, and I'm glad it happened, because now I've got a lot more empathy for people who traditionally I have like a intellectual hostility against, I guess you could say. I'm talking about socialists, communists, Marxists. I'm talking about the feminists. I'm talking about these gender people. I'm talking about all these people who complain and cry about inequality. They complain about the rich and how the rich are stealing from the poor, and they're oppressing people, and Black Lives Matter, and everyone, because all of those overarching cultural and political phenomena have the same underlying basis principle for why they exist. Okay, this is the important part. This is the important part. The whole reason that I shared this embarrassing story with you guys is so that I can get to this point here. Because I want to make it relevant, you know, culturally for you guys and politically, because this is a political-oriented channel. I think that this very concept of failure and the inability to handle failure is the reason why the socialists and the Marxists and the Black Lives Matter and the feminists all even exists. Okay? Just pick any of them. Pick one. Pick Black Lives Matter. Okay? What are some of their arguments? Well, thanks, Jen. That's reassuring. Pick one of their arguments, right? So Black Lives Matter argument is that there's an unfair amount of police shootings against black people, right? So they're losing. They're getting shot all the time. There's this class of people who are seemingly oppressing them. You know, they're failing. They're failing to live up to the standards that they see everyone else living up to or living in. It's unequal, okay? It's unequal. Now, the problem with Black Lives Matter is that unlike my process for failure, they failed step one, okay? They failed step one in handling failure because they never, ever even once will acknowledge the fact that maybe just, maybe just like a 10% influence factor, their behavior does have an outcome on, their behavior has an influence on their outcomes. Okay. The fact that like, I don't want to make this about statistics, but blacks commit more murders. Maybe that means you interact with the police more. Maybe that means you probably statistically get shot more. They never look at themselves for anything that they can improve. So you're going to fail, and you're going to keep failing, and it's not going to get any better. Socialists, they hate rich people. Communists hate rich people because they see them as successful, and they are not successful. I don't know if you guys met any socialists or communists lately, but if you go to these rallies and stuff, they're usually not rolling up in Maseratis wearing like suits. I don't think I've ever seen one wearing a suit. They come up with their trash college degree that they were promised. Think about this. They were promised the idea of success because if you go to college, you get this degree, you can make money doing what you love. And then reality happens. What is reality? You get out of college, you fail miserably because you have to be like a barista at Starbucks because you can't do anything with your degree. Now you're in debt. Now you're resentful. On top of that, if that wasn't enough to make you hate success and not, want to not blame yourself for failure, think about what they were taught in college. The whole time they were even in college, they're being taught all this stuff about you're oppressed. All these externalities are smashing you into a black hole of nihilism. You're just, everything is working against you. Is it really any mystery that these people, these kids coming out of colleges are so in love with socialism? Because they all fit that mold that I just talked to you about right there. They are all, not to be a dick about it, but they're all failures, okay? They're all losers. They're losers. It's about losers versus winners. They lost. They're losing. But the nice thing is, here's the nice thing about being a loser, okay? You don't have to be a loser forever. You can change that by, changing how you approach life and how you approach your situations that you encounter. So you don't have to be a loser forever. But they don't want to shift that blame, that responsibility for the failure onto themselves ever. It doesn't matter. You could present a fact to them that destroys their argument that the rich are oppressing the poor. It just it bounces off of them like Iron Man, like someone's shooting at Iron Man. It doesn't do anything at all because they're not even willing to be in a mindset where they can accept even a little bit of the blame. They can't even accept the fact that they contribute a little bit to their own situation. They hate property rights so much that they don't even believe in self-ownership. Like they don't own their destiny or their outcome of their life. They don't own that at all. It's like they're just floating in space. It's and I get that now. I get it. I understand. I'm not going to turn into a socialist, but I understand why they can do that, and I understand what would lead them to that point, and I feel bad for them. I feel terrible because that nihilism and that apathy and that sadness that comes out of this failure like this, it is really, really, it's attractive. I think there was a song somebody made about it. I don't really listen to the pop stuff that much, but somebody made a song about how sadness is addicting. That was the premise of the song. That's true. That's really true, especially for people like me, who don't experience a lot of fluctuations in emotion. So a long time ago, a few months ago, I took Jordan Peterson's personality test, the Big 5 personality test. So I think I scored a 16th percentile in neuroticism, which is kind of your overall tendency for negative emotion. A subset of neuroticism is volatility, which is exactly what it sounds like. Excuse me, I'm burping because I have Dr. Pepper. It's a gin and tonic, by the way. Cheers. I scored 5th percentile in volatility. Okay, so I don't know if you know what that means, but to put it in perspective, the average for guys is like 46, and I'm 5. So here, let me illustrate this. Let's get visual. Yeah, you'll notice that NPC Louis is gone. He may make a reappearance. Well, I'm not sure. So we have, I'm gonna make a little graph here. Happiness. Let's just go with happiness, because that's, you know, it's kind of like the trope, the selling point that everyone's told to go for in life, which is also false, and I'll go over that, why that is in a bit. Happiness over time. Let me explain to you what this chart looks like for someone with 5%, 5th percentile volatility. Okay, I'm not unhappy, so I'm somewhere like in the middle, but in general, looks like that. Okay, there's not a lot of fluctuation. Maybe the average person is probably something like that, right? That's like average. This is what 5% volatility looks like. So on nihilism or sadness and apathy, I guess, which is kind of the absence of emotion. Sadness, for example, let's go with that. When you experience a jolt in sadness, or a kind of like a deviation from this kind of basic average trend, like this, if you get something like that, you're like, oh wow, this sucks, but this feels kind of good, right? I could get used to this. It's kind of dangerous. So you have to be able, and this is the event horizon for that black hole that I was talking about is like down here. So if you reach that threshold, it's all over. Like, it's going to be really hard to get back up. Now, this isn't even really accurate to what happened to me. I would illustrate my situation, something a little bit more like this. This is what really happened. So I'm just going along, you know, normal life, kind of every day. I'm not unhappy. I'm just chugging along. I'm just, you know, I'm doing my thing. And all of a sudden, I get like this. This comes out of nowhere. I'm like, and here's the funny thing about this. So this crazy exponential curve upwards, all of a sudden out of nowhere. When I'm up here, I'm like, wait a minute. Something's wrong here. It's the exact opposite of the reaction that you should have. When you're up here, you should be like, oh man, this is great. This feels good. But that's how I felt when I was down here. And when I was up here, I was like, this isn't right. Something is really off here. I don't understand what's going on, but there's something's afoot. Something, right? I'm skeptical. I can't. And then it was that. So that's more accurate representation of what actually happened. So this when you're used to this, when you're 5% volatility guy and you're used to this all the time, and then you experience this just out of the blue, this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying that I got shocked. Okay, this was the shock to my system. It's not that it's not like I have some kind of one-itis where I'm like, oh, I want her back. It's just the fact that I haven't experienced this kind of jolt in a long, long time. But the reason you're listening to me is because you want to know why and how we can make this into a positive experience. Because it can be. So, the first option is anger, bitterness, and resentment. That will make the dragon in the corner of your house grow really big, really fast. Nihilism and apathy, option number 2. The dragon won't go away. He'll get a little bit bigger, but he's going to be there for a long time. Option number 3, which is the hardest one, because it's the most painful and it makes you the most vulnerable. It feels the worst, but it's the best option, and that is careful examination of the situation and doing like a lessons learned on the situation, which is what I tried to do. Yeah, Tara, I know number 2 is very attractive. It feels great. it feels really good. I don't blame anybody at all. First of all, I just want to say, I don't blame anybody at all forever. If you have something happen, and you went with option number one, you were giving into anger, or you fell into nihilism and apathy, not one bit of blame coming from me. Okay, I totally understand that. But option number three is like a lessons learned, and this is the hardest one because you have to acknowledge your own faults. You have to acknowledge that, okay, I did something wrong. And that was, I didn't choose to do it like explicitly, but I knew that was the only thing that was going to be productive. I think literally 20 minutes after I got that text saying that, like, basically, see ya, I think less than 20 minutes after that, I went straight to the gym because I needed some positive movement, some positive momentum to offset that just happened, right? And that's kind of my way of doing it, as I have to be like ultra productive to kind of overcome these kind of shocks. Now I don't know, I don't know how long, I'm not back up to normal levels yet. I'm gonna be down here for a little bit, not a long time, but when you choose to make the hard choices to like work out, eat healthy, rest right, not beat yourself up, you can ramp back up to normal levels pretty quick. So it's just getting over this initial shock. That's the hard part. If you can get through that and kind of be able to just steady yourself and kind of get an assessment of what's going on so you can get a direction, that's the hard part. Now I've jumped into freezing cold waters off of cliffs in Lake Superior before, and that was a shock, to say kind of like an understatement, because your whole body just wants to like shut down. Your whole body goes into emergency panic mode, and then you can't even breathe because your diaphragm is like locked up. It's seized because of the cold. So you can't even breathe. You can't really move very well. And your whole body is just in shock. This was similar to that. After about 15 seconds of being in the water, I got acclimated to it. I was like, oh man, I got control of my diaphragm back. I can breathe now. I know where I am. I can move my arms so that I can stay above the water. And I can swim to where I need to go. But that's just that hard part that you need to get over right there. And then once you get over that little hump, you can kind of make your way. So to summarize, it's a two-step process to getting over failure. Number one is you have to assign blame to the correct person. Blame doesn't have a negative connotation. People who are soft and, words are violence, those people, they're going to say that blame is a negative word. I don't care. I say blame. You can say responsibility. I say blame. Step one is assigning blame to the correct person. Step two is choosing the correct response. Give in to anger, nihilism, or lessons learned of the situation. So, and just because you choose to blame yourself doesn't mean that you're out of the woods, because you have to also not choose to blame yourself and then go into a negative spiral about that. So there's a lot of ways where somebody can go down the wrong path in that process. And I understand why people who hate people who are successful, people who can't accept their failures, people who are losers, can't get over that. I can understand that now. So, getting into more of a bigger picture, society. Why, you guys may have noticed, obviously you have if you watch my channel, because you are informed. You've seen on the grounds footage of what these people say. You know that this phenomenon of people hating success, and especially losers hating success. This is a growing trend. Like, this is just like exploding kind of out of nowhere in the past, I don't know, like 10 years, especially between like 2010 and now. All of a sudden, society is so soft. We've got this political correctness. We've got all of this stuff. People can't even handle words because they say words are violence. All of this ridiculous trigger warnings, all that stuff. Why is that? Now, I've talked about this a little bit before on one of my previous streams. I've probably mentioned it a few times. I think, this is the reason why I'm not going to make my kid wear a helmet if I ever have a kid. I'm never going to make him wear a helmet. If he wants to wear one, he can, but I'm not going to coddle my kids, okay? Now, there's like actual reasons why it's this particular generation. And I just started reading a book called The Coddling of the American Mind. I recommend that to all of you. Great book by Jonathan Haidt and the guy, like the head lawyer from FIRE, which is the free speech lawyers that go to college campuses and try to promote free speech. Basically, they sum it up really well in the book. Back in the 70s, I know there are reasons to wear a helmet, Karen, but I'm not making my kid wear one. I didn't have to wear one. I broke my arm. I smashed my face in the concrete. I turned out okay. I think so. They outlined the reasons why in the 70s, starting in the 70s, for example, with like these kind of the increase in news exposure of, for example, child abductions. Everyone got really protective of their kids, super protective, like helicopter parenting, stuff like that. Don't let your kids go outside. I read something the other day about how if you let your kids play outside in certain cities without supervision, you could go to jail. I couldn't believe it because all I did when I was a kid was play outside, like all the time, nonstop. I was outside from as much as I possibly could until I got PlayStation. So that kind of all went downhill. But the point is, I was out there. Okay, I was out there, getting lost, getting in risky situations, failing. I was out there getting hurt and figuring things out for myself. These kids today who are brought up on Twitter and safety filters and trigger warnings and all that kind of stuff, highly filtered, very filtered news feeds, media information about, think about it. Terrorist attacks, white supremacy, all this stuff you hear about in the news all the time. Of course, why wouldn't people just have mountains and mountains of like depression and anxiety? And then, you combine that with the fact that they were softened from birth, like they're protected in this bubble, like Bubble Boy. They never got to experience any hardship, so they don't know what it's like to overcome. They don't know what it's like to overcome a challenge. So when you're faced with a challenge, what do? You complain about changing the system. You complain that the system is rigged. You complain that you're being oppressed. You complain. That's it. You offer no fruitful ideas or solutions. You just complain, and then you pretend to be a victim. Okay? That is where victimhood culture came from. People's inability to handle failure. Okay? Are you starting to see the bigger picture here now? Is it starting to come together for you? If I was to... Now, it's not a bad thing. Morally anyway, it's the intent always was, of course, to like shield people from pain and hardship. I don't want my kid to smash his face on the concrete. Of course, I don't want him to do that, but I'm not going to make him wear a helmet. If he does, okay, then he'll have to experience this jolt of negative emotion for a while and then get over it. But like I said, the intentions were always good in that we don't want to hurt people. And this is kind of like one of those, this is one of those experiments of human society, human culture, human existence. We don't know. We didn't know that we were going to make people soft and pathetic by protecting them. If we did, well, maybe some people did. I'm not going to go there. If we knew people were going to get soft and pathetic and weak by protecting them, would we really do that? I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that to my kids. So, you know, it's like an experiment. We didn't know this was going to happen. This is an unintended consequence of trying to make life comfortable and easy and protected for our kids. So now here we are in this situation where nobody can handle failure, and nobody even wants to acknowledge that they can't handle failure. So they're kind of stuck, and they're tricked. Okay, and this is another big problem. They're tricked from the day they were able to like watch movies and understand ideas that the pursuit of happiness is the ultimate goal in life, right? Oh, the American dream and the pursuit of happiness. Movies like The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith. We're taught that happiness is what we should be pursuing, and that you can, if you have life experience, which I do now, by the way. I had my birthday last week too, so I'm officially 30 years old, which means I'm old and wise, and I can give you my gifts of knowledge and wisdom. And I figured this out on my own. I didn't have to have somebody tell me this. Is that, you know, the pursuit of happiness is a farce. It's an absolute. Thank you, Tara. It's an absolute waste of time. It's a waste of. It's counter. I wouldn't say it's counterproductive, but it's a waste. It's not a good idea. It's unoptimal, to use a scientific word. You have to have something underlying your search for happiness, something, and Jordan Peterson talks about this in his book. Other people talk about this too. It's not just Jordan Peterson. I don't want to keep like quoting Jordan Peterson all the time. You have to pursue something other than happiness, which is like meaning, right? Expectations equals disappointment. I feel you. Cheers to that. Because I'll tell you what, happiness is not a good idea to pursue. It's not a good concept to pursue because, let's take my example. Like you said, expectations. One of the reasons why this was such a shock, this drop right here, was because right here, man, my expectations were positive, right? I was like, oh man, this is great. This is going well. Like this is gonna go places. And then that got annihilated. But the point is, you can't control this part. This part right here, that's out of your control. So you can't pursue this like spike in happiness. You can't chase that, because stuff is going to happen no matter what. No matter how good you are, how rich you are, how smart you are, this is going to happen. This drop right here, man, I'm trying to do this while looking at the screen. I can see how weathermen have a hard job now because it's like inverted. This is going to happen regardless. So you have to find something that's going to get you through this and then back up to, normal levels. And, whatever that is for you, I have a lot of different hobbies and I'm trying to save the world through this podcast on my YouTube channel. So that's pretty meaningful. But, there's been times where I was like, screw it, man. This world is toast. It's going to, my parents always used to say, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. They love that one. Almost like you should be pursuing meaning instead of happiness. Exactly, Karen. That's exactly what you should be doing. That's the point I'm getting to. My meaning is that, maybe right now I'm looking to try and save the world through my illusions of grandeur. Jennifer, she's not watching. No, she knows my YouTube channel, but she definitely isn't watching anymore. What's up, Will? Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I'm getting a lot of new subscribers lately. If you're new, thanks for the support, man. What do you use for your hair? Asking the real deep, meaningful questions. MAGA shampoo. I like that. No, it's all organic shampoo. And then Suavecito pomade. That's the trick. Back to the point. I'm lucky in that I have a foundation established where I can handle this period and get back up. It still sucks. Believe me, there's no way you can not make this suck anymore or any less. But that's part of the process of improving, is that you have to experience this hardship. It's like going to the gym, right? You're not going to make any progress unless you lift really heavy weights and your muscles hurt. Okay? You have to be no pain, no gain. That applies not only in physical, but also in the psychological. Yeah, man, just started watching your videos. They rock. You're not rude or anything. You just ask questions and let people freak out. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you like the content. What you're seeing right now is my weekly podcast that I do in between protest videos, but I'm glad you enjoy the content. Thanks for sticking around. So, I'm losing track, but the kind of, to conclude this whole general idea is that also, here's the thing. I had this period of time where I was all super introspective, right? Getting meditative. It was like, when I was trying to figure out what was going on, whereas a lot of people will run away from their thoughts, I go specifically, I drown out everything. I'll just have maybe some soft music playing on my headphones or something like that, but I'll walk through the city, or I'll sit in the park in the Capitol, or I'll just sit on my couch, like looking out my window, just thinking for a long time. I probably walked like 8 miles in the last 4 days, walking around the city. And part of that, as I was sitting this one time in the Capitol, I was sitting in the park, just kind of, looking at the trees. It's actually really nice out there. And it's still nice outside in California. It's not nice where I used to live, so I'm trying to take advantage of, the nice weather. So I'm outside, and I'm just sitting on a park bench, okay? And this is one of those situations where I question whether or not we are living in a simulation, and sometimes a simulation will try to mess with you, okay? So I'm sitting on the park bench for like an hour, just looking at trees, and some guy walks over, like a Mexican dude. He kind of looks like a gangbanger a little bit. Like, I was a little like, okay. He has a bag, and in the bag he has a sandwich. He walked up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, I don't want to be, what did he say? I don't want to be offensive or nothing, but this guy gave me an extra sandwich, turkey sandwich over at that sandwich shop over there. You want this extra sandwich?" I was like, I do love turkey, but this is kind of a sketchy looking dude, and getting handed random sandwiches by strangers in a park, it's not one of my favorite pastime activities. But you know what? I was in like this open state. I was just trying to accept everything, and I was like, all right, it's 1 o'clock. I can eat now. I'll take this sandwich. Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I looked; it was all wrapped up still. So I want to make sure it wasn't tampered with or anything. And it was good. So I ate the sandwich. The guy sits down next to me, and he starts talking to me a little bit about, I'm like, "Hey, where are you from? Fresno, whatever, this and that." He takes a phone call from one of his daughters. I sat there listening to him for about a half an hour. So I'm on this park bench for a long time, but it's one of those things where he's on this speakerphone call, right? Speakerphone, sitting next to me on a park bench. He pulls out his phone. He starts talking on speakerphone. I was like, "Isn't that I'm hearing everything you're saying. You know that, right? I can hear everything you're saying." Apparently, he didn't care. So over the course of half an hour, I learned that this guy had like 3 daughters. He's probably like early 40s Mexican guy. He had 3 daughters. The first daughter that he got on the phone with was going through like deep depression and anxiety, and he was trying to like talk her through over the phone, like how to kind of like get through this, because her boyfriend was like a drug addict, and he was trying to be doing the whole drug addict thing. He didn't want to be with her anymore. She was trying to stay with him. So that that was like, wow. I mean, Jesus. And then I learned that he was in prison for 20 years while they were growing up. And then I was like, oh, okay, 20 years. I mean, what is this guy? I just took a sandwich from this guy. He was in prison for 20 years. What did he do? Now I'm a little like, but I'm listening to him talk, and you can tell he really cares about his daughters, and he loves them, and he's really religious. He keeps referencing God and keeps saying, well, this is what God wants. You just got to read the Bible, baby, and this and that. His other daughter calls, and I learned that she is into drunk driving. She's like she got like a DUI, and he's trying to like wrangle all this stuff. He's trying to wrangle all of these things, and there's all these problems that are in his life, and I'm just like, man. Okay, well this really puts my situation into perspective. Now I feel like a sissy for having been so like down and out about this little thing. This is a little thing that happened to me compared to what this guy's going through. This is what people have these big problems going on in their lives, and this is what I'm all busted up about. So I said, all right, well played, simulation, well played. I understand now. So that was basically like, stop being a little bitch, stop being a sissy, because there are real problems out there. Now, not to say that, what I felt wasn't real or anything like that, but the point is, and this is one of my big tools that I've used in my life for overcoming this kind of stuff, this like failure, hardship, whatnot. The biggest tool, I'll tell you, and this is probably one of the reasons why I'm a 5% volatility. Okay, people ask me why are you always so calm in the videos and this and that, or how can you not? I don't understand how you can not lose your cool. And I'm like, I don't really know how to explain why, but this is one of the tools that I use to get to that kind of like, let's call it Zen state, right? And that's perspective. Perspective is probably the most useful tool that you can use, and it may not be kosher necessarily to always be comparing yourself, and that's also one of my problems. It's a downfall. So I've kind of like, it's like a double-edged sword type situation where it hurts to compare yourself to people, but also it can, to put yourself into perspective, or from someone else's perspective, it can really help you kind of get over certain problems or certain ideas, issues, things like that. So this guy came out of the blue, gave me a sandwich, but more importantly, he gave me perspective. And it's not that it invalidated my problems. It's not like, oh, okay, well, then my problems are meaningless. It's that, oh man, things could be way worse. Like, maybe this isn't that bad. You know what I mean? It just kind of, it's a little bit of assistance in trying to get back up on that ramp to get back to normalcy. And, you can do the whole thing like, oh, there's millions of starving kids in the world, and a lot of them don't even have the opportunity for like romantic interests. And as I was sitting there on the bench listening to him, I thought to myself, a lot of the stuff that I do, most of the stuff that I do, talking about politics, having a YouTube channel, worrying about romantic relationships, stuff like that. Those are luxuries, okay? Because some people have lives where they don't have the opportunity to care about what kind of stupid stuff did CNN do, or what is Trump saying today, or they don't have that luxury of, oh, I'm just gonna go on my phone and I'm gonna search for, see if I can find a human being I'm shopping for a human being, basically is what it is. They don't have the luxury to do that. So it helped ground me. It didn't invalidate the problems, but it helped ground me and help me realize kind of the scale, because there is a tendency for when you're in these negative situations to go through negative kind of cognitive behavior, right? And that's the whole basis for cognitive behavioral therapy, is that you don't want to stuck in these negative patterns of like catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is, oh my God, this is so bad, this is so terrible. Perspective can help with catastrophizing because it makes you realize that it's not that big of a catastrophe as you thought it was. And some other, behavioral patterns that are negative, you can help get out of those by using perspective as a tool. So that's another important thing that has helped me get through this for sure, and it's helped me get through all of my problems. Perspective, trying to maintain perspective and not just get this tunnel vision mindset of just your life. Try to realize that everyone else kind of has their own life going on too, and you really don't know what's going on. It could be a lot worse. It sounds like a cop-out. It sounds like a cheap kind of trick to say, oh, well, my house just burned down. Oh, it could be worse. But in a way, it's true. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's like the end-all, be-all, but I'm just saying it's helped me. And the other important thing, and this is what I'm going to end it on and kind of conclude, is that when you go through this kind of stuff, then the really lows, you need to kind of, and this is another part of cognitive behavioral therapy or cognitive behavior in general, is that you need to be mindful of kind of like your state in life at any given time. I think it's important to be mindful of your state at any time. Being mindful of being here, for example, if I'm just chugging along, I'm not like destroyed or super happy or anything. No, I don't see a therapist, but I've researched a lot of cognitive behavioral stuff to try and train my brain, train myself. When you're here, man, you just derailed me. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, you don't have a reason, a catalyst per se to stop and think to yourself, do I have it good right now? Like, is this good? Is this bad? Like, when things are just going along and they're just going along pretty well, you're not pushed to become mindful of the state that you're in, to say, oh man, I'm in a terrible state right now. That does happen down here, right? It doesn't even really happen that often up here when you're going up into the really positives, into the high areas of life. Life is just kind of a series of peaks and valleys. Again, which is why happiness is not a obtainable goal, really, because this is going to go up and down as you go. But I don't think people really ever appreciate when they're high up either. They don't stop and think, man, this is great. But when you're down here, this is the only time where you ever reinforce your mindset in yourself, is when you're down here. And that's, luckily, that's one of the things that I've actually gotten pretty good at. Because when I was up here, man, I'll tell you what, there was one point, like a week and a half ago or something like that. I was driving home from work, and I had this awesome new song that just came on that I found that day, I think. And I was driving into the city, because I drive into the city from work, and like it was just at sunset, and the way that the light was hitting all the buildings was just like a Bob Ross painting. It was gorgeous. The music was pumping, and I was in the middle of this whole thing, and I was like, the quote from The Office came into my mind. Quote from Andy in The Office. I'm a big Office fan, by the way. And Andy said in one of the seasons, I can't remember, he said in one episode, he said, I wish there was a way for you to know that you're in the good old days before they've already left. And I was doing that. I was driving home, that song was on, and I thought of that quote because I was like, man, this is way too good. I have to just stop for a second, and I need to appreciate where I am right now and the fact that this is so good, because it's really rare. I recognized, I had the fortune of realizing that this was super rare, and I had the luxury of being able to, well, I don't know, the luxury, the skill, the ability to just kind of sit there the same way you would after this happens. I just sat there. I was like, man, I'm just going to savor this, right? I'm just going to savor it and enjoy it, because I literally thought, like, this is too good. I'm probably gonna get cancer or get fired or something like that. Like, something has to happen. This can't persist. I knew kind of in the back of my head that was too good, but I had the luxury and the ability to say, man, I'm in the good old days right now. Like, I had some of the good old days before they left. So I was very fortunate. And if you can develop that skill, you know, it helps ease the sting of that failure when it does happen. So when you're succeeding, if you're doing okay in life, you know, just stop, take a minute, and appreciate. Just savor it. Just appreciate the fact that you're not floating into the black hole of nihilism, or, you know, skyrocketing towards that raging neutron star of anger. Just sit back and enjoy it. And that's, you know, overall, I think it's going to be a positive experience. I'm still kind of in this phase where I'm recovering, but I'll get there. And I think this part right here, the positive part, where I was able to sit there and be like, man, this is really good. This is great. That is going to be a lot longer lasting. It's going to have a much bigger impact than the failure itself, because it's going to give me something. Now I have something to kind of like to shoot for, right? I have a benchmark, because this was it was so good that I was like, man, okay, well, yeah, it really sucks that it's gone, it's over, it's evaporated now. That sucks. But now I know what it really feels like to be in this part right here. So, okay, I mean, I'd rather have experienced it than not experienced it. And I think if you can get to that point, if you can get to that mindset about failure, you're starting a business, you know, and you go bankrupt. Another thing that I have done in my life. Yeah, when you're living through it, terrible. It sucks. And you think you're a failure, and you think you suck. And, you know, you think that you didn't have what it takes and whatnot. But when you look back at the lessons that you learned and the experience that you got out of it, it's going to make it, you know, it's positive overall. And that's the whole point of failure, and the no helmet and all that kind of stuff. All I was talking about, you got to hit your head to get bruised, and you got to get over those failures to get stronger. No pain, no gain. I could have just made this whole stream like two seconds long, just turned it on, said no pain, no gain, and then turned it off, because that's essentially, you know, this isn't any kind of new concept, but I've had to kind of come to these conclusions. These are the nuanced version of these conclusions in my view. So when are you going to start dating? Well, I haven't deleted my dating apps. I'll say that. Nuance bro cameo. No Nuance bro cameos. So to wrap, you know, to give you a few points, just to wrap the whole thing up. Point number 1, I think we could save the world if we could teach everyone to fail properly. I think we can heal all the division in this country if we could teach people to fail properly. I think perspective is a good buffer against the pain of failure. It's not going to heal you, but it's going to help be a buffer against that pain. And I think perspective is a valuable tool overall. And point number 4, no pain, no gain. Failing is good because it causes you to improve. So, you know, it may sound kind of stupid, kind of cheesy, but like I said, this whole stream was kind of like my way of confessing my sins and getting this off my chest, because I don't really have anybody else to kind of do a 1 hour, let me just talk about myself kind of thing to. Yeah. I'll say, you know, when I was up here in this uptick, this kind of like exponential raise up, the image that I had in my mind, I don't know if you guys seen Ocean's 11. Ocean's the original, not the original, but the one with George Clooney. I felt like George Clooney at the end of Ocean's 11 when I was in that. I thought that was kind of funny because I was just like, man, I got the caper. I successfully did the caper, and I got the girl or whatever, and I'm just like walking out of the casino with bags of money. So, yeah, that's my stupid emotional. That's as emotional as you're ever going to see me get, by the way. Once a year. Okay, I'm going to let myself do that once a year. Because that's about the rate this is probably going to happen anyway. So, failing is much preferred to winning. Thank you. You get it. Loaded brush. This guy gets it. People in my chat, maybe I didn't even need to tell you guys this because you understand. But, yeah, you know, it's, anytime you can just stop and think, just that in itself, because we're so plugged into everything, you know, just the fact that you can put social media away, put technology away, put all your connections away, and just stay in your own head for a while and see what kind of stuff you can come up with. I think that's a skill that people really need to work on that nobody has these days, because people are too afraid to stick around in their own head. And I think that's sad. Going through a breakup, so I'm right there with you. Oh, Ben. This wasn't as serious as like a big breakup. I was actually, fun fact, I don't fully understand this one either, but this like few week long thing, I was more busted up about this than I was over my breakup with my last girlfriend, which was 2 years, a 2-year-long relationship. I don't know. That makes NPC meme into a new light. A lot do not stick in their head. Inner monologue. Yes, that's exactly what the NPC meme is. They receive outer programming, right? There's nothing originating from inside their own head. They're just receiving programming from external places. I like that. Thank you, Miles, because you see now we're tying this into memes and the culture and the politics and everything. I love it. I'm glad you guys can kind of tie this idea into other things, but you know, here's a good example. I want to ask you if you think that this person has ever stopped and examined the reasons why he failed? Okay, and I'm talking about context of the 2016 elections. It's because you were still in the honeymoon phase. That's why it's abnormally painful. Wow, that's a good point, man. That's a really good point. I think you're right on that one. That definitely was a contributing factor. See, that's another good thing. I get to get some good ideas off of you guys. Do you think Cenk Uygur, let's go with Uygur, has, since 2016 happened, do you think he stopped for 1 second to examine why he lost the election? So here's an example of someone failing and not going through my process, okay? So Cenk says, Trump again calls Senator Warren Pocahontas, and Lindsey Graham says it would be terrible if he turned out to be Iranian. We've gotten so used to their racism that we just glide by it. It should be noted that it is obvious that Republicans are the party of racists. Seriously? This is the exact same stuff they were saying that lost them the election. So he never for 1 second stopped and went through my process and said, what did we do wrong? Maybe I shouldn't be calling people racists. Maybe I shouldn't be calling half the country racists. If he adjusts that technique, that strategy, he might see some success. In a way, this is a good thing because we know this strategy is going to fail. So Republicans are going to be happy because the Democrats still haven't changed their strategy from 2016 because they haven't examined their failure. They haven't acknowledged what they've done wrong. If anything, they've doubled down on the things that they were doing wrong. You didn't get to see her flaws. I'm dealing with the same. Yeah, no, that's true. It was definitely in the honeymoon phase. And I have my theories. Because part of my overactive brain is that, I think of, all the things that I did wrong. What was my fault? But, part of that process is I look at the variables, I look at stuff that happened, and I have a couple theories for why, she may have called it off for reasons of her own. Jordan Peterson said that internalized ideas is one of the major parts of why humans are different from animals, because we can live permutations of failures and success in our heads. Yes, that's a good point. If you can't create and think about those ideas in your own heads, then what are you really human? Does that make you human? Cenk is so bad. People who want to make choices for us when they cannot go inside their own heads. Yes. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Black Box. Yeah, I think you're right, man. Oh, Jennifer, you brought up a good point. I forgot to even touch on that in I was going to go through the whole list and look at the possibilities. MGTOW. MGTOW is a great point. I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you for that, because MGTOW is option number 2. Okay, and a lot of guys are doing that these days. A lot of guys are doing MGTOW. For those who don't know, MGTOW is an acronym, MGTOW, that stands for Men Going Their Own Way. It's kind of the result of, I would assign it to the nihilism category. It might also fit into the bitterness category and the anger category. But MGTOW guys will always say, well, I don't hate women, this and that. I'm not a set of women. I just don't want to play the game. So MGTOW guys are people who experience what I experience, for example, but then instead of saying, oh, well, I could do this better, I could improve here, I could make this change, they say, I'm out. I'm not going to do dating at all. I don't want to interact with women at all. Men going their own way. So there's just like, I'm going to focus and only do me. I'm going to focus on my hobbies, focus on making money, traveling, whatever it is. It sounds attractive, at face value, but is it really the right answer to separate, like to exit the game? To me, it's the same thing as saying, it's the same thing as the socialists saying that capitalism is rigged. You're just blaming the system. I don't want to blame the system ever. I don't find that productive. I'm always going to find ways to blame myself, and even in ways where no rational reason to blame myself exists. For example, in my job interview, I'm going to blame myself regardless. And the MGTOW guys are the exact opposite. They're the same as the socialists. I'm going to blame everything but me. Oh, the system is rigged. Oh, women are terrible, this and that. Walk away from it. I don't know. I could have done that. It's still an option. But yeah, the MGTOW ones, and yeah, no, you're saying MGTOW just wants to be left alone. Feminism wants to bother others. MGTOW's more passive, which is another bad sign of masculinity and how it's been destroyed, right? I don't think that's a masculine choice to give up. I want to be like a modern day like Spartan warrior. I want to fight. 300 of me versus 10,000 of failures, right? I want to be in the hot gates with just a shield and a spear. Bring it on. Let me take down as many as I can, okay? And I think that's a little bit more masculine, isn't it? Than just saying, like, throwing your spear down and walking away. Could you imagine if one of those 300 guys just like threw his spear down? I was like, nah, I'm out of here, dude. This is pointless. I'm out of here. Perhaps join the army. I've tried joining the Navy and they wouldn't let me in because I'm red-green colorblind. I was going to do nuclear propulsion. Everyone knows what it is and it's pathetic and disgusting. Yeah, no, MGTOW is definitely not something I would advocate. I've seen MGTOW guys say that they hate women and just want them off the planet. A lot of them do that. Oh yeah, absolutely. So those are the MGTOW that fall into the anger and bitterness category, right? And then you have the MGTOW who are like the nihilist, I don't care, I just don't want to participate in the system category. So like everything else in life, it's not absolute, it's not binary. There's a spectrum, just like gender. It's on a spectrum. It's not masculine, but neither are those idiots. Yeah, that's true. A lot of those guys really aren't masculine as much. Oh, Jennifer said something good. MGTOW. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's and I want to show you one more article. I know we're going a little long on this one, but that's the nature of like I said, you should see my notes. You should see my notes for this show. There's a lot here, a lot of content. To drill home on my point, I want to show you this article that I found from like yesterday, I think it was. This is Olivia Wilde. This is what happens to Hollywood. This is what happens when you are a product of Hollywood. Opinion. Olivia Wilde. I feel a great sense of urgency to make sure that our children don't grow up to make some of the mistakes we have made. Making children making mistakes. Okay, and that kind of goes against everything that I've just been talking about. Let's look a little bit more into the article. So they pull this up, and man, this is a doozy, I tell you. Show the notes, promise we won't steal. Put the notes up on my Patreon. Patreon.com/weeklynarrative. No, I'm just kidding. How I'm raising my son to be a feminist. Oh, no. And my daughter to believe that gender equality isn't controversial. Oh, no. To think that I used to find Olivia Wilde attractive. I feel great. Okay, so that's the subtitle. Let's scroll down. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to get right to the good part, okay? Take feminism. Feminism, for me, boils down to equality. Wow, remember what I was just saying? How everything boils down to equality and fairness? Wow, it's like they knew I was going to say that. Many adults have an incorrect definition of feminism, which is one of the reasons so many people still resist it. But the good news is that I think kids actually understand this concept better than some adults. They understand these ideas about fairness and equality deeply because they haven't been influenced yet with ideas of inequality, aka meritocracy, aka achievement, aka success and failure. We need to encourage this and cultivate their natural instincts. What? I feel a great sense of urgency, particularly when you look at what's happening politically in this country, to make sure that our children don't grow up to make some of the mistakes we've made. Okay, again, going against what I'm saying. You need to make mistakes. Mistakes are good. I worry that we haven't done a good enough job with early childhood education. Oh, wait, so let me guess. You're telling us we need to coddle them more, tell them that ideas are harmful, shield them from particular ideas, while also simultaneously telling them that there are 80,000 genders and et cetera, et cetera. But maybe if we can change the way that we raise children and change the stories that we tell them, we won't find ourselves in future disasters like the situation we're in now. Yes, no, let's take the generation that we have now, the soft, pathetic, weak, infantile generation of children who aren't even adults by the time they get 30. Let's tell them to coddle their kids even more. Great idea. Awesome. Fantastic. If you think about it, there's a lot of opportunity there, especially for parents, because we are on the front lines every day. Yeah, you're telling your kids how to think. She finishes by saying, we have the power to shape the coming generations. Oh, yes, that's true. Unfortunately, that is true. But to do this, we have to make sure that the ideas and social cues they are observing and absorbing enforce concepts like equality and empathy, not outdated stereotypes. Is anybody else, like, getting images in their head of Terminator-style nuclear explosions going off across America, like apocalyptic situations from this? Or am I the only one? Am I catastrophizing that a little bit? That seems like a really, really bad idea. And let's finish this out. I want my son and daughter to grow up thinking girls can be Batman and boys can be Wonder Woman. No. And that gender equality isn't controversial or political. It's just common sense. Oh, God, that's just like, it takes the energy out of my spine to even hold myself up straight. You see that? I just like slumped over. I just like, this is exactly what I was talking about. We're gonna pad children even more from failure and make them even weaker than we are now. I thought we were kind of at a consensus that this generation right now was a little like kind of strangely weak. And I'm like, I mean, look at the levels of anxiety, look at the levels of depression. There's some actual statistical data there, but also you can just kind of see in the culture that we're kind of weak, right? This, I mean, if you don't, this is the Hollywood bubble, okay? The Hollywood bubble, which is one of the reinforcements that pound the ideas of, oh, chase success and be comfort and happy and all this. This is one of the sources of that information, just pounding this idea into their heads. If I have a son that wants to be Wonder Woman, I have failed as a father. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I probably would feel the same way. But can you imagine the generation we have now, what their kids are going to look like if we increase the coddling, increase the safety, increase the buffers against failure? I don't think it's going to be very good at all. Now there's a lot of speculation that Generation Z or whatever it is coming up is going to be super conservative and this and that. But okay, sure, politically maybe, but are they able? Are they tough? Do they have thick skin? Can they handle failure and hardships and pain? I don't think they will. I don't think they will. So this is an example from yesterday, okay? Just yesterday, that this whole theme that I'm talking about of anti-failure, anti-pain, it's going on strong. They're not going to stop. They want you to be as their philosophy. My philosophy is, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Theirs is whatever doesn't kill you makes you weaker. And that's one of the concepts, again, that they talk about in this book, The Coddling of the American Mind, which, again, I recommend to you guys. I just started reading it today. That's like a principle that people are living by now, that whatever doesn't kill you makes you weaker. Like, I don't want speech that's going to hurt my brain. It's going to make me feel bad. I need trigger warnings on stuff that might be controversial or, scary. It's, what doesn't kill you triggers. That's funny. How does Olivia Wilde's husband walk with his balls in her purse? Well, his husband's part of Hollywood too. I think she's married to Jason Sudeikis. I think that's how you say his name. Whatever. I had a crush on her after Tron, but I think that's gone now. Because part of my interest in women is it's very intellectual. It's not all physical. It's more. I think it is actually more intellectual. And when I see people peddling ideas like this, it's not just with the girls either. I don't want to hang around guys that have ideas like this. If there was the way you think is more important to me, I think. Man, that is. I'm hoping that was an enjoyable journey for you guys. It feels a little better for me to get that off my chest finally. This has been kind of bottled up in my brain for like 5 days. But we'll get back to your regularly scheduled programming next week. I wanted to talk about this because it was relevant politically and culturally. So don't get used to it. And that's all I got for you guys. So I'll see you next week. I'm going to wrap it up there. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/weeklynarrative, patreon.com/weeklynarrative. If you want to throw me a couple bucks to keep the channel going, to help fund my travel to protests and stuff, I'm on the active lookout for protests. Again, if you guys see anything, please, God, it's like a drought out there right now out here in California. I don't know what it is. If I had the funding, I could go to Washington, but I'm looking for protests. If you see anything, shoot me an email, weeklynarrativeca@gmail.com, so that I can look about it. If you have any questions or comments or anything, you can always send those to my email, weeklynarrativeca for California @gmail.com. And that's it. So I'll see you guys next week. Peace out. Jeremy from the Weekly Narrative. Oh, wait. I had a special thing I was going to do. I might get a copyright strike for this. we're gonna lead us out. George Clooney from Ocean's 12.